At 3 o'clock in the morning, my wife, who was on a business trip, transferred 520 yuan to me with the caption, "I love you forever." At the same time, my twin brother sent me a photo of the two of them sleeping in bed hugging each other. I calmly took out the divorce agreement and dragged my wheelchair away from the home where I had lived for 10 years. The story is about to begin. Remember to like and subscribe. I know that all declarations of love after midnight are out of guilt after cheating. My wife sent me the money transfer and the bed photos together in the early morning. The words "I will love you forever" under the transfer message became a sharp blade at this moment, stirring my flesh and blood like slow slicing. My breathing was so rapid that I could barely hold the phone. Yesterday, my wife Sophia went on a business trip and my twin brother David went with her as her secretary. When I got inspired and got up to go to the studio, those messages popped up quietly. The money transfer and the words of love. When that bed photo appeared, everything seemed reasonable. The bed photo was sent by David. The sheets in the background were spotless. The two were topless. In the photo, David was hugging her. The woman's sleeping face was peaceful and gentle. David pointed his big middle finger at the camera and sent a message saying, "Brother, Ms. Sophia tastes good. It seems that you didn't satisfy her at home. You are a disabled person and you really don't have the ability to do that." I subconsciously reached for my empty trouser leg, grasped the fabric tightly, but finally slowly let go. There was nothing underneath my left leg. In the fire 10 years ago, I lost the right to stand up forever. That was to save Sophia. Ding dong, David's message came again. "If you know what's best for you, divorce Ms. Sophia. You've delayed her for 10 years, isn't that enough? Sophia and I have been in love for 3 years and married for 10 years. She is successful in her career and has created her own brand. She is a well-known strong woman in the industry. However, such a capable person married a disabled person like me. Everyone thinks that I am a drag and the biggest stain on Sophia. In the past 10 years, I have endured the world's gaze, but I couldn't bear Sophia's betrayal. I am tired, so let's do as David wishes." I dragged my disabled body and slowly moved to the studio. There was a dusty cabinet in the corner of the studio, and I took out the divorce agreement from it. The black and white words made me sadder than the bed photo. As early as a year ago, Sophia would occasionally transfer money to me in the middle of the night, both large and small amounts. After each transfer, there would be a sentence, "I love you forever." I thought that this was Sophia's little sentimental message to me because she couldn't bear the longing. After all, in the past 10 years, no matter how much the outside world talked about it, Sophia still stood by my side without hesitation, and we never had a quarrel in our marriage. But it was not until I chatted with my assistant in the studio that I learned that the displays of love after midnight were all due to the guilt of having an affair. I began to feel anxious and restless, tossing and turning all night. I dared not doubt it, but once the seeds were planted, there would always be an opportunity for them to sprout. The opportunity came on an ordinary afternoon when David came to pick up Sophia and said there was an emergency meeting. After they left, I went to the attic to look through the landscape photos I took with Sophia, hoping to find inspiration for painting. The attic was difficult to get to, so I abandoned my wheelchair and climbed up, but I saw two people kissing downstairs from the attic window. One was my wife and the other was my twin brother. The parking lot was in a tricky location, and the first and second floors could not be seen at all, so they dared to kiss there without paying attention to others. After all, they would never have thought that a disabled person like me would climb so high. The divorce agreement was prepared at that time. I made up my mind countless times, but gave up when I heard Sophia's caring words. But now I wake up from the dream, and Sophia has abandoned me long ago. I didn't take anything. The house was the same as usual, except that I put the divorce agreement in the most conspicuous place. I thought, letting Sophia go is also letting myself go. I didn't collect the transfer that night, nor did I reply "I love you too" as I usually do. Sophia seemed to realize something was wrong and returned home the next day. What's with the divorce agreement on the table? The weary words made Sophia's figure clearer. She pinched her nose, frowned, and seemed to be suppressing her anger. Sophia never gets angry in front of me, and every time she does, I take a step back. "Sophia, we are not suitable." I didn't want to expose the embarrassing side of her and David. I could be called a licker or a coward, but facing Sophia, I just wanted her to be more decent. After all, I had tied her for more than 10 years. Sophia laughed in anger and said sarcastically, "James, isn't it a little late to say it's inappropriate after so many years?" I didn't reply. Sophia sighed and patiently soothed him. "Okay, I know you were wronged at the last banquet. I have already severed my cooperation with that company, and no one will say no to you in the future." After saying that, Sophia said that she had something else to do at the company and turned and left. Speaking of banquets, I was in a trance. Last time, Sophia turned 30 and held a banquet at home. There were many guests and I came out to greet them. A company boss got drunk and said rudely to me, "How can you marry our Ms. Sophia? A disabled and poor painter will only delay people." The whole banquet was silent, with only the tapping sound of high heels. Many people liked Sophia, and what the CEO said was what others wanted to say. That night, Sophia was drunk and called me for the first time ever. She said loudly, "I'm drunk. Come pick me up." "Miss Sophia, who are you talking to on the phone?" A slightly soft voice sounded from the other end of the phone, and the sound of fabric rubbing approached the phone. It was hard for me to imagine how ambiguous the posture of the two of them was at this moment. David said in a concerned tone, "It's my brother. His legs and feet are not convenient." "Why do you want him to do it?" "Brother, Miss Sophia has a cocktail party today. Don't worry, I will send her back safely." There was no trace of error, and the brotherly friendship was maintained very well, as if the person who posted the photo of himself and his sister-in-law in bed that night was not David. I hung up the phone without saying a word, my thoughts in disarray. I barely even listened to the call from my partner later about setting up an art exhibition. "Mr. James, this exhibition will be held together with another painter. Do you think it's okay? The other party also likes the venue and said it is dark enough." The partner said with a smile. I couldn't help but feel curious about that person. After all, I chose this place because it was dark. The exhibition was quickly finalized. By the time I was done, it was already dark. After I moved, I temporarily lived in the studio. At 1 in the morning, Sophia came to my house drunk and said impatiently, "Why don't you go home? There is a limit to your temper." Sophia drank a lot of wine. She slumped on the sofa, her unhappy expression making her sharpness even more prominent. "Sophia, I am serious about the divorce." Even though I was reluctant to give up the relationship we had for many years, I still clenched my fists and said it. "However," Sophia said disdainfully, "James, who would marry you except me?" I was stunned in the wheelchair. The woman didn't open her eyes, and didn't feel how hurtful her words were. Disability seemed to be a barrier between us, and I was never the only one who cared. After a long while, Sophia slowly looked at me, her eyes regained a lot of clarity, and she explained awkwardly, "Sorry, I said something wrong." My heart gradually cooled down, I lowered my eyes and asked, "Sophia, you actually mind my legs, right?" I changed into pajamas, but still in long tops and long pants because I didn't want to see my neatly cut left leg. Now the fabric was shaking slightly as I tightened my grip. Sophia panicked, staggered to the wheelchair, held my hand tightly, and said nervously, "Don't think too much, I'm just too tired recently and I can't help talking." I didn't comment, but finally smiled and said firmly, "Sophia, let yourself go. You have already repaid your kindness." Sophia and I started dating in our sophomore year. It wasn't a passionate relationship, we just got together because we loved each other. During the graduation party, an accident happened. A fire broke out backstage. The fire was so big that it burned the entire exhibition hall, and Sophia was performing in the hall. I am a very stubborn person. When 3 firefighters failed to hold me back, I rushed in without hesitation. Sophia was rescued, but the price was my necrotic left leg. The year after my left leg was amputated, Sophia said she wanted to marry me. I knew very well that she just felt guilty about me and wanted to make it up to me. My disability made it difficult for me to work, and the temporary studio I opened also had meager income. In extreme panic and helplessness, I agreed. As Sophia said, who would want me if I left her? Sophia couldn't believe it, and she grabbed my collar and asked, "What favor?" "James, what right do you have to deny my love for you for so many years? We have been married for 10 years, isn't that enough to prove my feelings for you?" Like a child whose lie had been exposed, Sophia was furious. She pushed me back into the wheelchair and left without looking back. This was our first argument and it ended unhappily. In the next few days, Sophia didn't contact me and the divorce happened quietly. The exhibition was about to start, and my partner took me to discuss the venue with the painters who were co-hosting the exhibition. The place for the discussion was a cafe, and I looked around and found that it was next to the hotel opened by Sophia. When the painter arrived, my partner and I were secretly surprised. She was wearing a mask and the most ordinary white t-shirt, but her right arm, which should have been there under the short sleeves, was missing. Like me, she was a disabled painter named Olivia. Before coming here, I had seen Olivia's paintings, which were gloomy and full of stories, so that's why she chose that unknown exhibition hall. Perhaps because we sympathize with each other, Olivia and I had a very pleasant conversation. "Mr. James, although life is difficult, you must keep going." Before parting, Olivia used her intact left hand to make a gesture of encouragement, with green dried on it but not noticed by the owner. Green represents hope. Even if we tacitly avoid the topic of disability, paintings will not lie, and they reflect the painter's heart. I smiled and nodded, preparing to personally escort Olivia to the car. But before the car arrived, two familiar faces came into view. Sophia looked unhappy, and asked in a questioning tone, "Who is she?" Olivia hadn't left yet, and she felt a little awkward being sandwiched between the two of us. I explained calmly, "Friends who are planning to hold an exhibition together." Sophia remained calm until she heard David say in surprise, "You can be a painter without a right hand?" "Oh, I'm so sorry." David knew how to poke at people's sore spots. After hearing what he said, Olivia turned pale and said goodbye in a hurry and left. I gripped the wheelchair armrests, looked up at my twin brother, and said angrily, "David, if you're talking nonsense, just get some stitches." I knew very well how damaging these words could be. David looked at Sophia aggrievedly, but Sophia kept staring at me and asked word by word, "Why did you come to the hotel with her? The cafe is newly built and not on the map yet." Olivia filled in the hotel address when she took the taxi. "I just dropped her off outside the hotel gate. We just talked about things and didn't go to the hotel." But Sophia didn't believe it at all. Her eyes were red with anger and her tone became a little colder. She said in a cold manner, "You divorced me just for that disabled person?" When he heard the word divorce, David's eyes lit up and he smiled at me contemptuously. "Okay, Sophia, don't be angry with me. I believe they were just confused for a moment." David put the hat directly on my head. David tried to hold Sophia's hand affectionately, but she just glared at him and yelled like a boss, "What does my quarrel with your brother have to do with you? Go back to work." David turned pale and left angrily. "I just met her today, and divorce is not a spur-of-the-moment decision. Sophia, I hope you can think it over carefully." I was calm, so calm that it was scary. "If you want a divorce, just do it. Why don't you consider my feelings?" Sophia shed a tear, which landed on the back of my hand. I gently wiped away her tears and asked calmly, "When you made love with David, did you ever consider my feelings?" Sophia looked at me in astonishment and murmured, "How could you?" I responded with a wry smile, "Sophia, I don't blame you. I became disabled suddenly in my best years, and I was under a lot of psychological pressure. I am not a strong person, and I cannot ignore my broken leg. Even a glance from a passerby can still make me recall it." I regarded Sophia as the only person who could understand me, but in fact, she was under greater psychological pressure. I continued, "When I learned that you had cheated on me, I was briefly in pain and confusion, and eventually fell silent. I should have let go. I shouldn't have used selfish favors to bind someone. I respect your choice, but at the same time, I hope you can respect mine. I try not to say such an unpleasant word as cheating. To this day, I don't want to hurt Sophia. After all, I have been with her for 10 years, and that is real. James, please don't divorce me, okay?" Sophia was very clear about what she had done. Her pupils shrank, and she changed from looking down at him to questioning him to squatting down and begging him, "You are the only one I have, please don't divorce me, okay?" She hunched over and fragilely pressed my hand to her face. I looked at her and said calmly, "Sophia, you still have a career and friends. If you leave me, you will have more room for development." I know that she has been interested in expanding overseas markets in recent years, but considering that I am closed-minded and have difficulty in moving, she rarely goes abroad to discuss cooperation. I paused, trying not to let the tears flow. I continued, "I know how good you are to me, but I also know whether it is love or guilt. A person's eyes can't lie. Whenever you look at me, guilt is always greater than love. The fire trapped my legs, but this guilt trapped my heart." Sophia's eyes were red, and the strong woman in her career seemed to be blown away by a thin breeze. She cried and shouted, "James, you are a coward. You never dare to admit it out loud, and you always hide in your shell. I don't mind your legs, why do you keep alienating me because of this matter? Do you really not mind?" I looked up, my eyes moistened a little, and then said, "If you don't mind, why would you never look at my left leg? If you don't mind, why would you cheat on David?" Sophia was speechless. She couldn't even say the 3 words "I don't mind." "Just calm down and sign. I don't want to say anything more." After saying that, I pushed my wheelchair away. I was afraid that if I stayed for one more second, I would go crazy and ask her why she abandoned me. I was afraid that I would use my left leg in a despicable way to morally blackmail her. The night wind is a bit cold, autumn is coming. There are many things to do when organizing an art exhibition, and Olivia and I became familiar with each other. Since we had the same style, we worked together to communicate with the workers about the materials and the placement of the works. We left early and returned late every day, and our days gradually became fulfilling. When David found me, I had just said goodbye to Olivia. She shared her new paintings with me during the break in the layout. The style of growing towards the sun was full of life. It was obvious that her mood had changed a lot recently. I was sincerely happy for her and smiled when she came out. It seems that you get along well with that disabled person. David walked to the wheelchair and pushed me forcefully into the alley. I shouted in panic, "What do you want to do?" As soon as we entered the alley without surveillance, David punched me hard, and blood immediately gushed out of my nose, dripping onto my blue suit, leaving dark marks. David glared at me fiercely and said to me with a bad look, "What kind of magic potion did you give Miss Sophia? She has been losing her appetite recently and has been making mistakes at work. James, since we are divorced, can you please get out of here?" Looking at his furious face, I felt bitter. David and I lived in a violent family and depended on each other since childhood. Our relationship was much better than that of ordinary brothers. As a sister-in-law, Sophia often cared for David, her younger brother. But David felt the maternal radiance from her and wanted to monopolize her. Since then, we have gradually drifted apart. But in order not to worry Sophia, he and I still maintained the appearance of good brothers. I said tremblingly, "David, if you like it, go for it. What's the point of looking for me?" Bang, another punch came and my head was knocked to the side. David growled in a low voice unwillingly, "You, a disabled person, are enjoying Miss Sophia's love unscrupulously just because you saved her. But I think she will no longer like you soon." David said something incomprehensible and turned away. I didn't take it seriously, just thinking he was talking nonsense. But just one day before my exhibition, a trending search went viral. The disabled husband of the president of Sophia Family Group cheated on his wife with a disabled female painter. The poster was a well-known whistleblower account with good integrity, and there were 4 photos posted on it. One photo showed Olivia and I facing forward, and the rest were misaligned photos that could lead to misunderstandings. Public opinion was overwhelming, and a lot of information was exposed. Although I was low-key and rarely appeared in the same occasion with Sophia, Sophia was a public figure after all, and she would be secretly photographed wherever she went. And at the last banquet, someone secretly photographed her. The video of Sophia defending me was posted online, and public opinion quickly turned to Sophia, putting us in a dead end. How disgusting! He doesn't love the president's wife, but instead cheats on her with a disabled person. We share the same suffering. Look, he has no left leg. If he finds a normal person, he will feel unbalanced. It's true that a man who loses his wife will never make any money. James's studio doesn't make any money at all. Olivia was also attacked without any reason. Netizens who did not know the truth cursed, "Bah, you are so shameless to seduce people even though you are disabled. Maybe they are attracted by her money. After all, Miss Sophia is worth over 100 million. Any deduction from her would be enough for these 2 scumbags to live on. Poor sister president, she can't even beat a disabled person." Sophia's phone call came first. Her hoarse voice sounded anxious. She comforted him with a trembling voice, "I believe you didn't do those things. Don't go out recently. I will send a public relations officer to handle it urgently." I pursed my lips and finally rejected her. I called Olivia, but a man answered the phone. A cold voice came over the phone, "We will clarify the public opinion. You just need to find out who spread the news." The cold voice made me pause. I thought he must be the man who caused Olivia to change her style recently. I nodded and said, "Okay, I understand. The exhibition is tomorrow, and one day may not be enough to completely reverse the situation, but I can no longer be a coward and avoid this fake storm. Because the venue will be demolished in a few days, and it is the place that Olivia and I carefully chose for the painting." Among the 4 photos, the frontal photo was taken outside the hotel gate, with the caption, "Let's get a room." I contacted the hotel first, hoping to clarify that we did not book a room, but the hotel refused. The hotel is owned by Sophia's family, and David is Sophia's assistant, so he has every chance to control the hotel. Considering his harsh words last time, it is not difficult to see that this is David's handiwork. We grew up supporting each other, but in the end we have to go our separate ways. Towards the afternoon, I finally opened the door of my studio. There was a circle of reporters outside, with guns and cannons rushing in, and the flashlights were blinding me. "Mr. James, are you really having an affair with the female painter? Mr. James, is it unfair to Miss Sophia that you cheat on your disability?" The questions were more pointed than the last, and many harsh words came out, but they made me calm down. I should have faced my disability and my cowardly heart long ago. I coughed lightly and said loudly, "First of all, Ms. Olivia and I met because we were going to use the same exhibition venue. That day we were discussing the venue layout and other matters. Secondly, Ms. Sophia and I are currently in the process of divorce, and the photo was misplaced by someone intentionally, so there is no such thing as cheating. The word divorce was mentioned, and the whole audience was shocked. The reporters seemed to have found something big, and they immediately asked, could it be possible that Ms. Sophia did this on purpose? Maybe she wanted to prevent you from getting a share of the property. I looked at the reporter and smiled. She definitely didn't do this. The divorce was just a problem in their relationship. Ms. Sophia has always been an excellent person. Suddenly, a reporter shouted and everyone took out their phones. The incident was reversed again. Olivia made a special account to clarify and tagged me. Also caught my eye was the entry about Sophia cheating. The man behind Olivia seems to have great power, with videos, photos, and testimonies. The video of the discussion in the cafe was very high definition. Olivia and I just lowered our heads to mark the positions on the drawing. Our cheeks were actually half a meter apart, but we were filmed kissing. The video outside the hotel also showed where we went after we came out of the cafe. The evidence that Sophia cheated on David was several photos of them holding hands and hugging each other as they entered the hotel, including room check-in records and flirting in the company's tea room. Such scenes still make me sad. They are much more loving than I thought. Even the fact that I saved Sophia was exposed, and the public opinion was polarized. Sophia was pushed to the forefront, and David became a pariah. This David is the younger brother of Ms. Sophia's husband, right? He actually cheated on his sister-in-law. Is that fair to his brother? After all the fuss online, it turned out that Ms. Sophia cheated on her husband. This is such a fascinating story. I caught two disabled people and scolded them this morning, using their pain points to attack them, but the result was reversed. I should be more careful with my words in the future. The reporters who smelled the odor quickly retreated. They rushed to the Sophia family group and the crisis was temporarily resolved. As soon as the reporter left, Sophia's car drove in. As soon as she got out of the car, Sophia said anxiously, "Can you let me get out of the spotlight for a while?" Sophia had lost a lot of weight, her clothes were wrinkled, and she looked listless. Now that her company and home are blocked by reporters, Sophia can't go back and can only come here. I have already signed the divorce agreement. I am sorry for you. Sophia handed me the white paper, but it was not the one I gave her at the beginning. The one I gave her did not ask for anything, nor did I need anything, but the one she gave me most of the shares and property. I sternly refused. I can't have it. These things are all earned by your youth. Sophia still forcefully stuffed it into my arms, pulled the corner of her mouth, and said shamefully, "Keep it, it's my compensation." Sophia is a decisive woman who never takes back what she has given. She stood in the studio, looking at the paintings hanging around her. "I don't think I've ever really appreciated your paintings." Sophia stood in front of a painting, stroking the figure inside through the glass shell. In the painting, a woman in a white dress embraced a man who was fragilely buried in the woman's neck, and behind him was a red devil with a constant grin. Except for the delicate and white style of the woman in the painting, the rest of the colors were strong and rough, forming a sharp contrast. That was the painting Sophia drew when she proposed to marry me. I used to think of her as my salvation, but every time I showed Sophia the painting, she would pour out gorgeous words and never hesitate to praise me. Sophia touched the broken cracks and said dryly, "Actually, these paintings are a reflection of your inner pain." The cracks were made when I lost control of my emotions when I learned that Sophia had cheated on me. She now knows that these paintings were never a comfort, but a catharsis. I stared at the painting and said calmly, "Did you really not know it before?" "No, you just didn't care." Sophia froze in place, a dejected temperament emerged. She didn't care whether I was lonely and depressed, and didn't care about the inferiority and cowardice brought by disability. She cared about whether she was repaying the favor and cared about the society's evaluation of her loyalty to her husband. Perhaps she couldn't answer this question, so Sophia looked away and changed the subject. Sophia murmured, "The day I cheated on you was the day you refused to have sex with me." After my left leg was amputated, I never looked at the missing leg except for taking a shower, let alone the spice of love, sex. I couldn't get over it, and I didn't want Sophia to look at it too much, so the end of our marriage was never the fault of one party. Sophia looked at me with red eyes and said aggrievedly, "I lied about being on a business trip, but I actually went to the bar to get drunk. I didn't understand at that time. I mustered up the courage to accept you, but you pushed me away." Sophia approached me step by step, and finally lowered her head, without any expression on her face. She said in a sad voice, "That night, David came to pick me up and drugged my wine. I mistook him for you and had a ridiculous night. He reminded me of the 3 years before the incident. You were tall and strong like him, with your fangs sticking out when you laughed, and they would knock against me every time we kissed." The pair of white hands fell and brushed my lips. Seeing that I pursed my lips tightly, Sophia showed a regretful expression and withdrew her hands. She turned around and covered her face, then continued, "You rarely smiled after that, and even when you smiled, you couldn't see the fangs." David's presence around me became stronger and stronger, and I couldn't help but regard him as your substitute. David loves Sophia very much. When he was suspected of plagiarism in his graduation project, it was Sophia who ran around the school to prove his innocence. When David was a child, he was falsely accused of cheating in an exam by his classmates and his parents were called. The first thing his mother did when she arrived was not to ask the reason, but to slap him hard. His mother forced David to kneel down and apologize to the classmate, and this incident became a knot in his heart. So the appearance of Sophia is undoubtedly a ray of light in David's life. You said, "It would have been great if there hadn't been that fire, or if you hadn't rushed in to save me." Sophia sighed, her eyes red as if she was about to cry at any moment. I looked dejected and said helplessly, "But there is no if. I will definitely save you, even if time goes back, I will still rush in to save her. She is my first thought, the lover I have been in love with for many years, how can I be indifferent?" The setting sun from the window shone in, shrouding both of us in orange light. We smiled in relief. I saved her, and she took care of me for 10 years without giving up. That was enough. For the rest, I won't blame her, and she won't bother me. Time will not go back, all we can do is let each other go. In the early morning, Sophia's assistant came to pick her up. I looked and it wasn't David. As if seeing my doubt, Sophia said in a resolute tone, "I asked him to resign. I never thought he would hurt you." Not only did David frame me, but he also brought shame to Sophia and damaged the company because of this incident. It is not logical for Sophia to keep him. How could he become like this? Sophia's last question disappeared in the wind, feeling a little melancholy and disappointed. The next day's art exhibition was held as scheduled, and I also saw the man next to Olivia before it opened, Thomas, the prince of the Thomas family group. Rumor has it that he is a ruthless and vindictive man, but when he stood next to Olivia, his eyes were full of tenderness. Olivia's and my paintings have been put on display in the slightly dark environment, giving off an indescribable sense of mystery. Olivia was very happy. She jumped in front of me to show me her arms and said excitedly, "Look, I have a prosthetic arm and have started practicing painting." Thomas followed her and indulged her in chattering and sharing her feelings. I think Olivia and Thomas must have had an unforgettable experience. Thomas looked at me in a friendly manner and said, "Mr. James, you can also go and get one installed." Looking at the metal prosthesis, I smiled and nodded. I had it installed in the first 2 years after the accident, but the prosthesis was not connected naturally, and I walked with a limp. When David saw it, he said that I looked like the lame rooster in the village, and that I would be laughed at because I walk with a limp. Although Sophia said she respected my decision, the embarrassment and shame in her eyes when she saw me walking made me completely give up the idea. Now, I have to get out. 10 minutes before the opening, Olivia saw the empty space in the middle of our painting. She asked doubtfully, "Where is this?" Thomas ordered someone to bring in the painting. It was the painting that Olivia had shown me before. Unlike all the paintings in the museum, that painting was free, passionate and unrestrained. The rich breath of life was fully displayed in the painting. I smiled and said, "Put it there. This is the most appropriate place." It was my fault that Olivia was cyberbullied, so when Thomas contacted me and asked if the painting could be placed in the middle, I readily agreed. On the one hand, I felt guilty, and on the other hand, I felt it was really appropriate. This painting is not only Olivia's inner heart, but also my desire. Now that my heart knot has been untied, I don't want to be stuck in boredom and internal friction anymore. Olivia knew who meant it at a glance. Her cheeks flushed, and she was so angry that she hit Thomas. She said shyly, "But this painting is not good." She painted it at home with her prosthetic limbs. The brushstrokes are a little unfamiliar, and the light and shadows in some places are unnatural because of the shaking hands. But the significance of the painting far outweighs these shortcomings. Thomas said lovingly, "When you were painting, your mood was very different. It was a new life for you and a change for me. It is placed here to serve as a continuation of other paintings and will not cover up their brilliance." The painting was finally placed in the middle. Yesterday's incident was very popular, resulting in many people coming to the exhibition, including many reporters, but they were all blocked outside by Thomas's bodyguards. The unique style and environment made this exhibition a great success. Half of the paintings that were originally scheduled to be sold were sold out, and the proceeds will be used to support the disabled. After my life became better, I wanted to invest the income from the studio to help the disabled, or install prosthetic limbs or subsidize their lives, and Sophia readily agreed. So the studio has not developed, and besides me, there are only 2 assistants to help connect with the business. The exhibition venue is very winding, but it is a road that leads to the end, and people who come to visit the exhibition will eventually reach the innermost part. Olivia's painting is placed in the darkest center, leaving only a small incandescent light, but the whole painting dyes the entire exhibition hall with color, and everyone passing by is amazed. When the exhibition was about to close, I was the only one left. I sat in my wheelchair and reached out to touch the painting, but even if I raised my body, I couldn't feel the border at all. I supported myself with the wheelchair and slowly stood up on one foot. Finally, I touched the green in the painting and smiled with relief. I heard footsteps behind me, and a sudden hoarse voice said, "Even if you stand up, you are still a disabled person. What do you think you can change?" I didn't sit down, but held onto the painting and turned to look at David. It was hard to see clearly in the darkness, but David looked decadent, with only a pair of eyes staring at me, filled with hatred and unwillingness. I responded with a serious expression, "I am disabled, but so what? Should I be inferior to others and lower than you?" David clenched his hands and stood there, looking as pitiful as when he was a child after being beaten and scolded. I looked at my ignorant brother and said earnestly, "Sophia and I are both moving forward. David, people change, and you shouldn't stand still." He has been guarding Sophia for 10 years, and he hated me for being tied to Sophia all the time. But now I have let go and am leaving. Sophia let herself go and walked forward with her head held high. Only David stayed where he was. "How do you want me to let go? Why should I let go?" David took a few steps forward, but then stopped in my sight. I saw that his eyes were bloodshot. David screamed crazily, "I can't help falling in love with Miss Sophia, but she is my sister-in-law and you are my brother, but I have to be tortured between the two of you. I thought that if I was luckier, I could wait until you broke up, but you saved her and made her inseparable from you for the rest of her life. Miss Sophia gave you care and love, but I got nothing. I have been your substitute from the beginning to the end." He knelt down little by little, bent over on the ground and cried in embarrassment, "I did something wrong, but I can't go back. I love her, and I miss every time she is by my side. How can I let go?" I was speechless, not knowing how to reply him. When I found out about his infidelity, I was also devastated like he was now. He was my brother, my blood relative, my only support in the world, but he betrayed me. David held his head and cried out in pain, "I'm sorry, brother. I regret it countless times. I hope I didn't have any wrong thoughts. I hope our relationship can go back to the way it was before." I couldn't just stand by and watch, but I couldn't empathize with him either. There was nothing wrong with his love, but his mistake was that he hurt me and Sophia. I looked at him calmly and said, "I accept your apology, but at the same time, we can't go back to the way we were before. It doesn't feel good to stand on one leg, but after experiencing the view when I stand up, I don't want to sit back in my wheelchair and look at the scenery that I have seen for decades." David was desperate, and his hoarse cries coiled in the air intermittently. Suddenly, someone walked slowly behind him, and the familiar sound of high heels floated into his ears. "We can't go back to the past, but we always look forward." Sophia stood beside David with a melancholy expression. "When people reach 30, they always think more about the meaning of life. The past is worth remembering, but the heart always thinks about the future. David, life is more than just love. When you get rid of your obsession with me, you will get more." She squatted down and stroked David's head, looking exactly the same as she did 10 years ago. The tears David shed fell into the darkness, and when he looked up, they were illuminated by the incandescent light on the painting, and a glimmer of hope rose in his heart. He looked past Sophia and at Olivia's painting. Finally, he said, "Yes, people should look forward. There may be change, new life, or freedom ahead." The three of us found relief from different perspectives. The days that followed passed quickly. I was busy adapting to the prosthesis and trying new painting styles. During an activity to help the disabled in the countryside, my story of helping the disabled was exposed. Many people knew the real purpose of the studio and called on the internet to help more people. At one time, people in need of help from all over the country received help, and the cost of installing the prosthesis also increased. Sophia caused considerable damage to the company because of the incident, but Sophia sincerely apologized, actively participated in the Disabled Assistance Association, and gradually got back on track. David quit his assistant position, went abroad to study finance and traveled around the world, and gradually let go of his love for Sophia. He knew that Sophia would never accept him in the future, so the only way out was to let go. The next time I saw Olivia was at her wedding. She held Thomas's arm with her prosthetic limb and smiled very happily. Now Olivia and I have been helping disabled people. We have been caught in the rain and felt the loneliness and isolation, so we want to help more people and let them truly have a new life. Everyone is looking forward, and the future will definitely be better.